Hi everyone, I'm Nitish and I am today recording this video to actually tell you about my journey of how I moved from a completely management position to finally into machine learning and in the field of artificial intelligence. And honestly, a lot of my friends have been telling me, to actually record such a video to tell my learning path and my journey of how I got there. And I think now that I look back at this journey, it's actually very interesting and I would just love to share with you. To start with, I think the first thing I want to share with you is why did I actually get into this field of machine learning and why not what I was doing already, right? So, to quickly tell you a summary of that, if you look at 1.5 years back, what I was doing was I was actually in a very good management position working with some senior leaders in a company and was working on business strategy, was working on how can we solve the sales strategy of the company, how can we solve the marketing strategy of the company. So all very cool stuff which I had always aspired to do. Uh, but there was a fundamental problem which I felt. Now if you see my passion, and this I recognized like 5 or 6 years back, that my passion has been to solve problems, right? And when I say problems, these can be any sort of problems which are creating a problem for a business or for a social sector NGO, where by the way I've worked in social sector to solve those problems for some time, for a year, before I again moved back to corporate. But that's been my passion, to solve problems. And what I realized, that in my management position, while I was definitely solving some big strategic decisions and big strategic problems, there was not that much fun, because these are the problems, first of all, which have already been solved by someone else, right? So they may be solved by some other business manager in some other context. So it's not that a completely new problem which I'm solving. And secondly, I think the fun was lesser, because it's not that you are creating a disruptive innovation, right? I mean, obviously it is important, and I kind of contributed to the revenues of the company, to the profits of the company, but it was all incremental improvement, right? And that's true, by the way, even for consulting, right? And for a while I was attracted to consulting, but then as part of my this work which I was doing with the company, I got to work with one of the with a team of consultants who our company had hired. And what I saw was, again, what they were doing is they were set frameworks. Let's say if you have to go to a market, new market, so you will call in a consultant, they'll give you a set framework of how enter a new market. Similarly, if your costs are running too high, you call them, and what they will give you is how can you cut your cost to increase your profits, how can you focus on specific things, and do all sorts of rationalization, which is great. But I found that, first of all, again, those frameworks exist from so long, right? It's, if not you, someone, I mean, these are the problems which are already been solved by someone else, and the frameworks are in place, and you just have to make incremental changes from one place to another. And secondly, even if you're doing that for a client, definitely you're solving a problem for the client, but it's not path breaking, right? And when I say path breaking, for me the inspiration was people like Steve Jobs, people like Elon Musk. I would keep seeing their videos, but I was like, how can I do that, right? So this is quickly the why part of it. And then what happened is, one fine day, there was this whole article which I read by one of the people who was actually in investment banking, and then finally decided to give all of that up, learn software right from scratch, learn to code right from scratch, and completely change their field. So I was very, very inspired. And at the same time, the world was changing. There was whole talk of machine learning happening, and everyone was talking about artificial intelligence. So I thought that maybe I should give it a chance, right? And that's how I entered into machine learning and AI. And honestly, after all my analysis, I realized that this is where the future lies, and more importantly, it is very passionately critical for me, because using that artificial intelligence, I think I can solve problems which have not been solved earlier. I can go into territories which have not been explored earlier, and hence make the world a better place by solving those new uh, problems which exist in the world. Uh, so just now quickly getting into the how of it, like how exactly did I do it, and how uh, you know I moved into this field of artificial intelligence. So I can tell you the learning path on how to do that. Now, Step one, what I did was that obviously I researched around what are the online courses which I can do, because I was not gonna leave my full-time job which I was doing, but I knew that if I start utilizing my weekends to learn, maybe let's just start with that, right? So the first thing I did was obviously I knew that I have to learn coding, and there were two options. Now, whenever you go into machine learning, and obviously I figured this out after reading a lot of blogs, is either you learn R as a programming language or you learn Python. Firstly, I started with R, and when I learned R, it was obviously great. But now, if you to give you my background, though I have an engineering background, but I had never done coding in the past. Maybe I had taken one elective long back in C++, but again I sucked at it, so I was really scared of coding. But then when I did R, it was again, kind of the syntax which was there was really tough for me, and that's a question actually for a lot of people, because it's so tough to remember those syntax, which is not just like plain English. Uh, so then what happened is eventually someone told me that maybe you should do Python, because that's much more easier and much more, I don't know, as people say, it's much more applicable for machine learning. So what I did is I started learning Python, and honestly, it is way more easier and user friendly. And that's the reason, by the way, why the first coding language which even today the kids are taught in school is actually Python. Because when you write it, it's pretty much like how you write simple English. So I think that is really amazing, and that's how I kind of chose Python. And what I started to do is the first thing is learn Python, and I think the course which I would like to recommend to you to do Python is it's a course called Python for Everybody by University of Michigan on Coursera. It's just a mind-blowing course, amazing. The professor is really nice and he is really funny, and he explains all the concepts in a very simple language, and I think that's was really helpful for me. It was an amazing learning experience from that. Now after that, once I learned Python, step 2 was, and this is, by the way, another reason why I learned Python, is because a lot of online courses in machine learning, you will see that most of them work with Python. All their exercises are in Python. So that's how it was again helpful for me to learn Python instead of R. Now the step 2, coming to step 2, what I did is I did a course called Data Science, Applied Data Science with Python, which was again a series of 5 courses by University of Michigan, right? So it's a full specialization, has 5 courses in it. And I did that, and what it does is essentially right from telling you how to do data analytics through Python, right? Basic, from how to plot a chart, how to visualize your data, how to filter your data, how to clean your data, to finally it took in the 4th or 5th course, what you do is you learn the basics of machine learning. So it takes you through basic machine learning algorithms which are used for for relatively smaller databases, like 10,000s of data rows. There are algorithms like logistic regression, linear regression, SVMs, decision trees. All those kind of algorithms is what I learned through that. This, just between Python and learning these basic machine learning courses, it took me around 6 months. And then what happened is I realized that this is great, and I have learned the basics of machine learning. I could write a basic code for a linear regression, logistic regression in Python. But I realized that the actual revolution which has happened is because of this algorithm called neural networks, right? And that's why the whole talk about artificial intelligence and they taking over the humans, because they say that neural network is something which operates just like the human brain, right? So then I searched this course, and there's a guy called Professor Andrew Ng. He's actually amazing. He's one of the pioneers in the field of neural networks and artificial intelligence. So there's a course which is called Deep Learning Specialization on Coursera. Again, a set of 5 courses. And that's when I signed up for that specialization, and it again took almost 6 months to do that specialization, because it starts from course 1 talking about how to write a basic neural network algorithm, and then in the second course the professor tells you about how to optimize that algorithm over time. So let's say your accuracy is not good the first time for predicting things, how do you improve on that? And then thirdly, it talked about how to structure an end-to-end machine learning project, because it can be much more than just cleaning data or just you know it also involves not just algorithm, it also involves how to get the data, how to clean the data, how to improve the accuracy and everything. And the fourth thing was, it talks about convolutional neural networks, which is all about how do you build face recognition technology, how do you process images through machine learning. And then the final course is on speech recognition, right? All these Alexas and how do they work when you say, hey Google, how does it operate? So all that gets covered in that course. So I think at the end of the specialization, I was really equipped very, very well to write an end-to-end machine learning program. I could understand any business problem which was there, both from a business perspective, from technology perspective, from algorithm perspective. Now, a couple of things I think which helped me, which are very critical, is number one, I gave 1 hour every day to this, right? So I was doing 8 hours of my own thing, and but still I would make it that I have to give 10 hours a week, which means 1 hour on every weekday, and then 3 to 5 hours on every weekend. So I did it that consistently for 1 year. That's how I completely changed my skill set, entered a new field. By the way, now I'm working as an artificial intelligence transformation manager and managing one of the AI based products in insurance industry. So that's what I'm doing right now. And secondly, I think which is very critical is that you have to be really passionate about it. It's gonna be a bit mathematical. It's gonna be not easy to write those assignments which are given at the end of the every course, which are like you have to write a full algorithm. Obviously some part of algorithm is already there, but we have to write the rest of it. But it is, again, it's gonna need a lot of persistence and perseverance to actually go through that, which means you ought to be passionate if you actually want to do it. But at the end of it, I can promise you, you will get really into the depth of it, and you're gonna understand it so well that you can look at any business problem and say, how at an algorithm level can you solve that problem, right? And and I think right now, like I told you, the field I am in, the problems which I am looking at are completely new. We are looking at how can some process which used to take 10 days, how can it be done real time, through mobile processing of the images, for example, which is a completely new problem which no one has ever solved. So that's the excitement which is there now in my work because of this whole change I made. So yeah, all the best with this new learning path. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put a comment or just reach out to me. Yeah, thank you.